Well, first of all, welcome to the Wellness and Lifestyle Medicine Symposium. I am Amit Gudigoli, the current president of the Texas Indo-American Physician Society, the Northeast chapter, the TIPS NEC president. And I would like to personally welcome each and every one of you and thank you all for being here on a Saturday morning. We have about 200 attendees, so this is already a great success. It shows how much interest there is in this topic. So give yourselves a big round of applause. This is the 14th CLE that TIPS NEC is conducting. And this is the first one we are having on wellness and lifestyle medicine. And also the first one we are partnering with County Medical Society. So we're very excited to be partnering with the Dallas County Medical Society. You know, the currency of health should be wellness and not treatment of illness. However, in the last several decades, the pendulum has swung to the right. So we've all become people who treat illnesses. And I, as a cardiac electrophysiologist, am the poster child for the current healthcare status. I put defibrillators in patients with prior heart attacks and cardiomyopathy and EF of 20%. So it's a little ironic that this symposium should occur when I am the president. However, this happened, it kind of happened all of a sudden, but last year I had no inkling that we would be here. I have to give credit to an inspiration I got from the last API. API is the American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin. So they had a convention in San Antonio last summer, and they had a wellness track, and I happened to sign up for that. And I have to say, the kind of lectures I heard there from these absolutely awesome people, who are not only great speakers, who not only have great content, but it's their life's mission to spread the word of wellness and lifestyle medicine. So, and I have to give a shout out to Dr. Ravi Kohli, the current president of API, who's been kind enough, he flew in from Pittsburgh to be here. So thank you, Ravi. So, when I got back to Dallas, I said, we got to do something and spread this word to bring this to our physicians, our TIPS members and the larger physician community. So the first thing I did was I called our very own Dean Ornish, our very own wellness guru, Dr. Anup Kumar Shetty. As many of you know, he has conducted several symposiums like this on wellness and given talks. So he and I sat together and came up with this vision. But of course, a vision without execution is an illusion, as they say. So there are many people behind this, and I would like to take 30 seconds to thank a few of those. Of course, the first is our CME chairs, Dr. Anup Kumar Shetty and Dr. Winnie Bapna. Dr. Bapna couldn't be here. She had to go back to India to attend to something, but everything's all right. She's here in spirit and she sends her best wishes. I also have to thank our CME committee, who is so dedicated and came up with great ideas, great suggestions, and of course our board, the TIPS NEC 2023 Board of Officers. And special thanks to the Dallas County Medical Society, Dr. Donna Casey, the president, and John Roth, the CEO. And they were excited to partner with us, and they helped promote the event. They've been great partners. I also need to thank our sponsors, without whom some of these things would not have been possible. The main platinum sponsors have been IntraCare, AstraZeneca, and Novo Nordisk. We do have a lunch talk by IntraCare and 2 product theater talks during lunch by AstraZeneca and Novo Nordisk, so please attend them. Of course, these are our other sponsors. We got to take care of this flashing. By the end of the evening, by the end of the day, people will be dizzy if they continues. To talk about something that we are doing, the Texas Indo-American Physician Society, the Northeast chapter, for the next 2 years, we are conducting a community education campaign on reducing cardiovascular risk. As you heard, that cardiovascular risk can be altered. And we as South Asians, we are at the highest risk of cardiovascular disease, as most of you know. And we are the only ethnic group that is an independent risk factor for coronary artery disease. So we decided to do a community education campaign called The Heart of the Matter. And we came up with a slogan, and I have to admit that the slogan was influenced by in part by the wellness symposium I attended at RP last year. So you have bookmarks on your table, and it tells you the slogan that we have, hashtag live the dream, where D is for diabetes and lipid control, R is for reduce hypertension, E is for eat, right, and exercise. We heard about that. A is for adequate sleep, and that's the next thing we're going to hear. And M is for mind-led lifestyle. We heard a little bit about that, and mindfulness. So I'm preaching to the choir, but this is an education campaign for the community. Well, moving on to our next speaker, Dr. Dedhia. He's going to be talking on sleep. Let me try to get a stop before I... It has a lot of gravitas. We take it as a gospel truth, and it must be. But we do have an expert in Dr. Dedhia to tell us the importance of sleep and how to get better sleep. Well, the meaning of the statement is, proper sleep cures half of all illness. To give a brief introduction of Dr. Dedhia, I heard him at the RT conference and I said, we have to get Dr. Dedhia here. And he did play hard to get, but we are very glad that he's here. Dr. Dedhia is coming all the way from Arizona. He is passionate about defining health. He's a dedicated internal medicine clinician as a former academician. His medical career spans Johns Hopkins, Cannon Ranch, and most recently, Move Your Health. Dr. Dedhia is board certified in internal medicine, obesity medicine, and sleep medicine. Moreover, he is fellowship trained in integrative medicine and geriatric medicine. He started Move Your Health, a personalized health program focused on longevity. Beyond lifespan, living longer, Movio is focused on health span, living better. Param collaborates with a team of experts in nutrition, exercise, psychology, innovation, and technology to bring best health into daily life. With his family background from India, Param loves to bridge Eastern and Western philosophy. With this, he connects traditional wisdom to modern science. He is forever curious about the world and is widely traveled. His favorite author is Malcolm Gladwell, and since he was young, he has lived by the saying, know thyself. Param is nourished by friends and family, regenerated by music and dance, and inspired by kindness and all things clever. A man after my heart. Please welcome Dr. Param Dedhia.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to get right into the topic, sleep. Let's understand and let's frame this conversation. I'm going to tell you about things you already know. Remind you of things that have made sense to you in the past. And make a few new connections to do what? To go from idea to action. What we want to be able to do is to be able to understand why we talk about it. As we frame this symposium, the conversation isn't about what we traditionally look at. Yes, we are clinicians. We look at signs, symptoms to make a diagnosis. And with a diagnosis, we can find treatment. But let's take the bigger step. Let's take that step back. We're here to talk about health, wellness, and living the life we want. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Let me share with you, when I first started, I'm a classically trained physician like all of us. And I was really looking at this conversation of diagnosis. And I still love the medicine we practice. But it's the and. And can we now move to living the life we want to be a part of? When I started for also of the big lever to move toward our health. So what I wish for us to do is jump right into it. Is this a brand new concept? Not at all. This is a classic discussion from good old grandma. What was grandma's medicine all about? First and foremost, you've heard it. Eat your vegetables. Thank you, pumpkins, right? Plants. What we want to do is be plant forward. Going above and beyond that, we want to all understand about this of exercise. We got to have nutrition and that exercise. And I'm here talking to a Daisy audience. I spend a lot of my time on healthy weight. And let me just put this little plug in there. It's not only about the number on the scale. Let's start learning about lean mass. I beg you to start understanding that. If you look at the data sets on healthy weight, there is this unsaid discussion about that. Visceral fat, of course, but learn about your lean mass. And what are we here, my friends? To talk about your sleep. And what I really want to do is to get right into this. It's traditionally touted, but modern science is taking it 2.0. So let's talk about it. There's so many things we can get from sleep, and this is just a quick top 10. First and foremost, every single night, it cools the body, it restores. We know that from new surgical procedures, cooling the body can create a lot more healing of the nervous system, the spinal cord, and everything in between. So what we do know is every single night you cool down. A little bit of trivia, let's hear this. So next time you see your bed partner, grab a few sheets and pull up a little bit more of the blanket. When is that? That's usually in the second half of the night, and that's when you start dreaming. So when we're in the sleep lab watching people, when we see the more sheets are being grabbed, we're like, oh, here it comes. It's dream time. Don't worry, we don't know what you're dreaming about, but it's just indeed a fun little trivia point the next time you see a loved one. The next thing, every single night we reset. Sodium, potassium, chloride, and on. We do know that's for the nervous system and for the cardiovascular system. Without it, we get sparks. Do any of us want sparks in our heart, in our brain? No arrhythmias, no seizure-like activity, please. Now I'm introducing the concept of heart health and brain health and sleep. It's not subtle anymore. Furthermore, repair. Here it is. You had a good workout? You want to get the full benefit? Get your sleep. One of the biggest things right now in sports medicine and performance medicine is sleep. LeBron James, 38 years of age, playing at a very high level, is reported he gets 10 to 12 hours of sleep during the season. I don't know if everybody needs 12 hours of sleep, but it goes to show that there is a restorative, reparative concept to sleep. Sleep's an anti-inflammatory. It's a billion-dollar industry, and we make it every single night. Now, these studies are based primarily on the sleep deprivation, which I think is a far-fetched data. I don't think any of us do not sleep at all. But it does even show reduced sleep leads to higher levels of C-reactive protein, TNF-alpha, interleukin 1, 6, and 10. So please just give yourself an appreciation. Every single night, it heals. Going further, not only the physical level, but here it is, that of our mental and emotional wellness. Right? 100 years ago, what was touted? IQ, intelligence. What became the hot topic back in the 90s? EQ, emotional quotient. And in terms of that, we know every single night there's emotional caring. And I want to really appreciate that we've all come through this time over the last few years with COVID. We are giving much more appreciation to this concept. Please appreciate that we do know there's a high correlation between that of poor sleep and that of mental health. It's about a 90% correlation. Every Thursday, I spend time at the local chemical dependency area to review the sleep. Because we know if those individuals do not sleep well, they're more likely to go into relapse and have greater challenges of their recovery. Please appreciate, all of us want to honor the mental, the emotional, and that spiritual health. As mentioned, whatever is to be discussed about sleep, the doors became open in the year 2000, the Sleep Heart Health Study. I wish for you, all of you, to get acquainted with it, but just know I'll sprinkle it in through this talk. What we do want to appreciate also with this is that anything that's good for the heart is good for the brain. Here I list neuroplasticity, making new connections. There's a whole nother topic. We do know that there's the lymphatic system of the brain that clears the brain out every single night. And it tends to clear out tau, amyloid, and tangles. Why do we think about that? Because the book of Alzheimer's says, curiously at autopsy, there's more tangles and there's more amyloid. So there may be this connection. About 4 years ago, the Great World Symposium on Dementia was talking about the benefits of sleep as a potential opportunity to reduce dementia worldwide. Whether we're worried about neuroplasticity or not, all of us want to have our very best memory. So what we want to do is appreciate sleep as a huge opportunity for this. When I get into the stages of sleep, I'll more or less highlight this. Once I tell you about it, you won't want to donate your sleep away any longer. There's a huge opportunity every single night. And here's a topic I love to talk about. As much as I'm an internist, the way to eat, the way to move and get your sleep, if we're not here to talk about joy, why are we here? Are you guys bored this morning? Nothing else to do? Just want more factoids? It's about bringing this into our life and living a life of joy, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And one of the great things about sleep, it helps all of it move in the direction toward our best life. And the big promise, here's the one that we want to talk about. What's the promise of sleep? To have that morning, have that afternoon, have that evening, to have the energy to live the life we want. None of us want to tolerate the nasty dips and drops and white knuckling through the day. It does happen on occasion. We want to minimize those as much as possible. Now, for the longest time, I was always talking about healthy sleep, optimal sleep. I know we talked about adequate sleep, but I'm going to push the envelope per se and move toward optimal, if you would, with me. Sleep has to have enough time and quality. What I would want you and I to know is that every textbook of sleep says, please encourage more sleep time, because worldwide there's sleep deprivation. We're sleeping a lot less than our great-grandparents, roughly an hour and a half, 90 minutes, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a few moments. The other concept is this one, and this one's tough. Quality of sleep. This gets into the staging, the wake-ups, the ability to be able to get that sleep time, but the quality as well. And I'll help differentiate this. So I'm talking to a group of colleagues here. By virtue of our training, we have a high tolerance for distress. So if I were to sit and talk to this group, or executive groups that I tend to speak to a fair amount, if I wait for a sleep complaint or something on the review systems, I'm missing it. I'm going to ask all of us not to think about it, but to ask about it. Please, please be curious. Lean in more and more. This is the third topic. So quantity, quality, and rhythm. Have that repeated in your mind when you sit in a consultation, when you sit with yourself, with your loved ones. Quantity, quality, rhythm. And this rhythm concept in 2017 was given the Nobel Prize. So this is understanding this morningness and eveningness concept. We do know that we are connected to the moon and the stars, and that every single night there is some healing. Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, touted this, but it was only 7 years ago that we put this basically in the medical literature. But it's there if you look for it. There's a certain benefit to something that can be unpopular. When I talk about it is going to bed before midnight. There is a huge data set that talks about every single organ having its own clock. And the liver, for example, has its clock that needs to be repaired before midnight. Sorry, I know I just ruined some of the people's social lives a little bit, but it is a fairly important little tweak to add to these conversations. Now, if you're like me, you didn't start learning to sleep, it came along the way. You know, I did my first fellowship in gerontology, worked in lifestyle medicine, worked in integrative medicine, obesity medicine, and then I was like, oh my, one more fellowship, here we go. So sleep was something I had to unlearn a lot of things. So let's have a little fun of the things that I had to unlearn, and perhaps you as well. Here's the conversation. We all wish we could sleep like a baby. Are babies the best sleepers, my friends? Some of you are nodding yes, and many of you are like, What do babies do over 18 hours? Eat, sleep, poop. Eat, sleep, poop. You won't get through a symposium or a lot of things in life, right? What we do know is which age group tends to be in the life we want to live the best sleepers is who? Teenagers. Teenagers are the rock stars of sleep, and don't let anyone tell you any different. Okay, teenagers today are different than your or my era of teenageism. But what do teenagers do? Let's think of it. They get to sleep. They stay asleep. Have any of you tried to wake up a teenager before they're ready? Flexing, right? Should have just left them alone. And here it is. The reason I bring that up is it's an important way to think of our baseline. You and I were once a teenager, and that's how we actually equilibrate to what we think of as healthy sleep. And I want you to know that chemistry is still within us. We didn't have to do anything to bring it to the forefront during our teenage years, but now, lifestyle medicine, this is a huge opportunity. So, this is something I want to stress. If you take nothing else away from the talk, quantity, quality, rhythm, and daytime sets up night, night sets up day. Daytime. What do I mean there? How you eat, how you move, and how you honor your stress is huge in terms of setting you up for the best night of sleep, of that of the quantity and quality and rhythm. So let's keep going here. Now, you heard in my bio, I spent time at Canyon Ranch. I was there for 12 years. Loved my time in that wellness space. But the wellness space frustrates me. There's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of gimmickry. And it's what I call a lot of half-truths. Half-truths are really deceiving. Enough to hook you in, but enough to completely bamboozle us. So here we are, talking about a statement that's half-true. We need less sleep as we get older. My friends, this is a partially true, and therefore also partially false statement. Compared to our teenage years, we do need less sleep. And as we get older, it is not as easy to get to sleep. but we still need it. We still need our sleep, even though it's not as easy. How much sleep do we need? 7 to 9 hours is 90% of us. This is where I get in debates with my colleagues in sleep. There's a lot of articles. There was just one that was published, I forget which newspaper in the Northeast, saying, listen to your body's rhythms. Just kind of go what it feels like good sleep. I want to give everybody permission to try more than a day, more than a weekend, to get the 7 to 9 hours. When I was at Stanford learning from the godfather of sleep, William Dement, who passed away this past year, he said, look, go give yourself an experience of 14 days, then come back and talk to me. And then he left the room. It was really amazing, because I have seen that experience there. Give everybody an opportunity to experience enough quantity. But again, let's think about what's happening, because I'm here talking to us as adults, not as teenagers. What changes in us? We become less deep. We become easier to wake up. You fuss with a teenager, they're going to fuss back with you. You and I, we take a deep breath and we get right back into saying, okay, what do you need? Right? We've answered our pagers ad nauseum. So what I would want you and I to appreciate here is that there is a change, but let's make sure that you hear me see it clearly. We're going to talk about how we can turn this back toward quantity, quality, rhythm. Daytime sets up night. So here we go. Let's talk about it. What is the goal? 7 to 9 hours. But what is it? Do we have to do it all at night? What about dreams? The answer is yes. So let's think about what I'm saying here. First, second, and third, try to get your sleep. Seek to get sleep at night. It is still the gold standard, without ifs, ands, or buts. And what I would want us to appreciate is if we can't get it all at night, then naps are a great way to backfill into that 7 to 9 hours. So first, get it at night, and if you can't get it, then please take a look at naps. But wait, some of you have adapted napping into a really harmonious part of your life. They did a study in Greece that looked at Greek males. They took them and they divided them into 2 groups. By the way, all were recruited who were already nappers, afternoon nappers. They had one group, they said, stop napping. Other group, keep doing what you're doing. They had to stop the study early. Too many cardiovascular events in the group that stopped napping. Intriguing. We're still teasing that data part of set, but it's something to say that when somebody has a rhythm and we try to be smart and change the rhythm, we sometimes really stir the pot and not in a helpful way. Now, naps are an art. Napping, therefore, is best if it's part of a routine. So again, going back to that Greek study, I do wish to break people's routines unless it's not helpful. And second, 10, 20, and 30 minutes of napping has best been described in the literature. More than 30 minutes, we tend to see it's complicated. Think of naps as snacks. If you snack too much before your dinner, too close to your dinner, what kind of appetite are you going to have before dinner? So napping has to be a little bit of short, but not too close to bedtime. I know probably obvious, but it's still helpful to state out the obvious when we're sleep deprived. Now, this next slide is just more or less for demonstration. No need to memorize it, but it illustrates this of how sleep started, the brain. We go from this wake-up brain to stage 1 and 2. Stage 1 and 2 is called light sleep. The worst nomenclature we could have ever picked. Who here wants to be a light sleeper? Said no one. What we do know is light sleep is about half of our night, 60-ish%, and it's garden variety, a lot of goodness. It helps us roll over, be able to get up and use the washroom, do different things. It does a little bit of everything, but it's light. But what we really want is this, the next 2, deep sleep and dream sleep, better known as stage 3, the rapid eye movement. Now, a lot of audiences say, hey, what happened to stage 4? Well, stage 4 got more or less pulled out just for teenagers. Teenagers really do stage 4. It's like deep, deep sleep. So therefore, the new textbook says stage 3. So just a bit of clarification. But don't worry about all this slide. Really focus on the bottom 2. Why do I want us to focus on this? This is that rock star sleep. This is that recovery sleep that we speak of. That's that teenage career sleep. And it's time to take it back. And let's think about that. Because this is a huge key opportunity. Let me tell you the answer now, so as I go through it, you're just hearing it again and again. What we do know is that the way you eat, the way you move, and the way you take a look at your stress and honor it with ritual every day and night, it is absolutely helpful to get this deep sleep and dream sleep. So let's make sure now we go into it. Now, this is a nomogram. We do this in a sleep study. We plot out the different stages of sleep. We start there on the far left with the beginning of the night, and therefore that 8 hours, right? 7 to 9, we pick the middle number. But since we're using an even number of 8, I want us to artificially talk about the first half of the night and then the second half of the night. What do you see more of in the first half of the night as I color-code it? The green is stage 3, better known as deep sleep. What goes on during deep sleep? This is cool. You don't want to miss this. Every single night, all of us put in growth hormone, testosterone, proteins that repair the body. It's a $1 billion industry, and we all make it every single night. So when I have people coming in to see me for testosterone therapy, I say, how's your sleep? They go, oh, it's terrible. Let's talk about your sleep. I'm not opposed to talking about testosterone, but let's talk about your endogenous, your natural opportunity. Every single night, this is what's happening. Now, what I want you and I to hear is what can you do to promote deep sleep? You've heard it, but I'm going to tell you again. ATP. When you burn up your ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the adenosine that's left over goes to the brain, induces deep sleep. So the more fatigued you are, the more more expenditure of energy from your muscle system will help you be able to get your sleep. So think of it. You've been working out, more or less doing yard work all weekend, helping a friend move. What do people usually say by Sunday night? Ooh, I'm going to sleep good tonight. But wait, if you work out so hard, push yourself to being in pain, does pain help you sleep? Nope. So no pain, no gain, right? That's insane. So we want to appreciate muscle aerobic activity regularly. This is going to be really important to get that deep sleep. Now, the second part of the night, let's go ahead and talk about it. First half is physical. Second, with that blue. What does the blue line up with? REM, rapid eye movement. Now, rapid eye movement is dreams. It's the story, it's the fairy tale, it's the bizarre. It's these fragments that come together. What I want you and I to know is this is not what I'm able to focus on as the meaning of dreams, but let's be, as a starchy academic, what's going on in the brain. What's going on there is an area of your brain called the limbic system opens up and it clears the negative. So important to clear the negative every single night. Right? The brain has multiple ways to work. Neuroplasticity, reactive versus responsive, and a negative bias. You guys know of this, right? If I tell you 50 nice things and a rude statement, what will you remember? The rude statement. If I tell you 500 nice things and a rude statement, now what will you remember? The rude statement. I really suck at this, right? So what you're seeing here is that we have Velcro for the negative, we have Teflon for the positive. Mental and emotional wellness and sleep is not just friends, they're intimately connected. So what I want you and I to appreciate, every single night we clear out the negative. Now, I want us to be able to understand that, mental emotional clearing. This brings in a pause, really big clinical pearl here. What is the number one conversation I get? Not about falling asleep. Instead, Param, I wake up in the middle of the night, around 2 to 3 in the morning, my mind's going, I can't shut it off. And they look at me as they just are finishing their revisit of that terrorism that they went through. It is rough. Let's think about, why does this make sense? The first half of the night, they paid off the physical exhaustion, so they're no longer exhausted. Now what happens? The brain kicks in trying to clear stuff. And if it has a gobbledygook overflowing bucket, it tends to spring somebody toward being awake. So what I really would want you to know that this, to me, is a huge opportunity to talk about mindfulness, meditation, breath work. I love talking about these two topics. Nutrition, exercise, is that I'll get there, but work on your sleep, work on your mindfulness, and then we definitely will get to the top of the hill. So what I want you to do with me here is to understand that there is going to be a ritual every single night of soothing, of relaxing. The biggest thing right now in pediatric sleep is learning to teach children how to self-soothe. Think of what we saw during the pandemic. How good is the population at self-soothing? My friends, we all have to practice this. It's tough. We're not just physical. We're mental, we're emotional, we're spiritual. We need to heal every single day, every single night. Now, just to go through the physical, the mental, let's now get to the next yummy thing. What goes on in the brain during sleep is this conversation about healing. What I want us to do is talk about memory. Whether you feel you got a good memory or not, let's maintain it. Here's what goes on. In the first half of the night, you bring in facts. So here it is. The analogy is you have a panorama of the day you just lived, and you enter into sleep. And what you have in the first half of the night, you're reviewing facts. Like, oh, that's a good one. A little post-it note. That's a picture I don't want to forget. A little Polaroid. You're putting in post-it notes and Polaroids in the first half of the night. Just the facts. Sergeant Joe Friday from the famous Dragnet sitcom. Second part of the night, you're going to take all those stacks of new factoids, new pictures, and you're going to connect them to things that were not spoon-fed to you during the day. And as if you have a file cabinet, you're going to open it and connect the new and the old. What is that? Problem-solving creativity. Who here would like to bring that into their life? Every one of us, whether it's personal, professional, or something in between. So physical, mental, emotional, bring in the facts, creative problem solving. Who here wants to donate their sleep away any longer? A few tidbits. More energy you burn up, you get more deep sleep. Eat real food. When you eat processed foods, energy goes up and down. The area under the curve, less energy expenditure. Name of the game is spend your energy. Do the muscle aerobic work. Learn about your lean mass. I ask and beg of all of us to do that. Super important. We're not just physical. We're mental, we're emotional. We need to soothe. We need a ritual. We need an opportunity to taper into the night. You can't go from these blistering days of work, and then drop into sleep. That is not reasonable, and it doesn't work that way traditionally. Now, what I want you to know is, I'm going to go back here, there's something else that could confuse us. It's natural, every single night, it is absolutely natural, 90 to 120 minutes to get up and roll over. Think of children, they're all laying there, they're all curled up, 90, 120 minutes later, open your eyes, smack their lips, and get back to sleep. Do they wake up saying, Mom, Dad, woke up 4 times last night, not getting my emotional clearing, not getting my physical repair, can we call Uncle Param, can we get this figured out? No, they're not saying that. They just roll over and go right back to bed. So for you tonight, when you get that glint of light, that little ache and pain, and you're awake, remember, thinking about sleep does not help you sleep at all, right? So smile, know you're human, it happens to everyone. Give yourself permission that it's normal and roll over. I beg you. They did these studies long ago. Half here, you got to stay up all night with me. You over here have to go to bed early. 9 o'clock in bed, fall asleep. Got it? What happened in those studies when they've done them over and over again? The opposite. The group told to go to bed, couldn't. The group told to stay awake, couldn't. The brain is a really funny tool, and it is really with a mind of its own at times. Now, what can go wake us up? Now, this is us as clinicians. Do not miss this. Sleep apnea is there. It is the king of the hill. Yes, all right, got it. So what we'd want to do is to really appreciate that every single night we need to appreciate snoring is normal, but 2/3 of people who snore don't breathe well. There's home sleep testing, and it's definitely something we want to put in. The next one is here. Don't miss this. Restless leg syndrome. It is common in Daisies. The textbook says it's not common in Daisies. I politely and passionately disagree. I beg for us to know that it is indeed real. 2/3 of people with restless leg syndrome clench or grind their teeth. My friends, I have positional sleep apnea. I have restless legs, as does my father and grandfather, and I've broken 2 teeth because I didn't get my mouth guard soon enough. Yes, I'm a hot mess, right? And I want you to know I knew none of this until I started talking and learning about sleep. So I really would want you all to think about this. Next one is when you hurt, you don't sleep. When you don't sleep, you hurt. 2-way street. Meds, caffeine, and alcohol. Since I'm not going to have enough time to get to those slides, let me hit it now. Medicines, we're learning much more. Every single medicine is being put into a database of how it helps deep sleep and dream sleep. But let's get to the others. Caffeine. It takes basically 7 hours to reduce your caffeine by 50%. Now, genetic studies are coming out. I'm running them more often. I can tell you about 1/3 of people are fast metabolizers of caffeine. Majority of people need 7 hours to reduce it by 50%. So an 8 a.m. cup of Java is a half a cup at 3 p.m. and at 10 p.m. it's a 1/4 cup. But if you have a pot of coffee in the morning, it's a quarter pot at night. And what is the favorite times of the barista? Over there at the Starbucks, check it out. This morning I was busy. When's the next time it's going to be super busy? Roughly 2 to 4 o'clock, right? That afternoon dip drop. That's very classic of the circadian rhythm. So what I want you and I to know is that afternoon caffeine is not your friend. Now, one other thing. Caffeine blocks the chemical that puts you into deep sleep. Sorry. So that person who takes an espresso and goes, I go right to bed, whatever. I'm like, dude, we're not getting your deep sleep. They don't know what they don't know. So please, enjoy your tea, your coffee, but in the morning-ish, please. Less than the afternoon, and avoid the evenings if you can. I ask and beg. Oh, one more. Let's go back to the alcohol. Any remaining friends, I'm going to lose them right here. For every one drink you have, you affect your sleep for 2 hours. Tick-tock, 60 minutes, 120. The first 60 minutes, your body's relaxed, your airway's more relaxed. What happens there? You snore a little more. At least your bed partner does, right? So that's the first hour. And the second hour, the brain's more fidgety. But if you have a double before bed, that's 2 hours of not breathing well, inducing apnea, and then 2 hours of fidgetiness. I know what you're thinking over there. I'll drink in the morning. That's not what I'm going to do. Never let me come back and talk. So what I would want you and I to think about is, again, quantity and also the timing. It's really important to bring it into our life. Finish up here with me on this slide. What I want you and I to think about here is really important. Anxiety, depression. Please check to see how they're sleeping. And if somebody's not sleeping well, be very careful to look at their depression and anxiety. Birds of a feather, they run together. Menopause. You're like, thanks buddy, enough goes on during menopause, you want to add something to the list? We do know is that with less estrogen, muscle mass can get a little bit lower, but the tone of the airway, the pharyngeal muscles that tend to open the airway get softer, even if there's no weight gain. So there tends to be more apnea. So when somebody tells me, hey, there's hot flashes, the person's having menopause, wait, should we just send them for, review of hormone therapy or, using an antidepressant? I'm like, time out. What's another thing that makes us have sweats at night? Not breathing. So apnea. So the next time you hear about night sweats, do not only think about hormones. I beg you. I also ask us, you won't find it, I promise you, about a third of the time. How many times is it normal to get up and go to the loo? 0 to 1, normal. 2, normalish. 3 or more, talk to someone. What I would beg of you to think about more times, it is sometimes the kidneys, the bladder, and the prostate. 2/3 of the time, something wakes you up and you're like, oh, but I gotta go. Bladder over brain every moment thereafter. And what I would want you to know is if there's any insult to the brain or the heart, I beg of us to be able to make sure that we think of this, that we make sure a mini heart attack, mini stroke, full sleep workup. You could potentially prevent a major heart attack, major stroke. Any immune system that's angry, please, please, please give yourself an opportunity to address sleep. Sometimes short course of some aggressive therapy, but it's a great way to break the system. My friends, I know I had other slides. I promise I'll ask them to send all the slides out. It'll also have my contact information, but let me just summarize.
We'll have over 3 minutes for questions.
All right.
So I'm a psychiatrist and I see a lot of insomnia.
Yes.
And I have a lot of people on sleeping aids and sleeping medications. My question is, when people sleep naturally, you said what are the benefits? Do people with sleeping agents get the same benefits?
I love that question. Do people get the same benefits on hypnotics, the sleep aids? And I'm not sure which sleep aid you might be looking at. So here's the one that I was taught, right? We learn things in school and then we have to unlearn them. I was told incorrectly that zolpidem, Ambien, Lunesta, Zopicone is fake sleep. It's real sleep. It is. You get all the stages there. Over time, you can minimize a bit of the dream sleep, but virtually you're still getting sleep. So I want people to know that. But wait, what is my big concern of those hypnotics, the non-benzodiazepine receptor agonists? It softens the airway. It's a muscle relaxant, just like Valium, Xanax, Ativan. So when somebody has apnea, I could be worsening their apnea. So many people are like, hey man, you're a nice guy, give me a little extra. I'm like, do a sleep test. oh, come on, man, be nice. And I'm like, I am being nice. Do you want me to come to your bedroom and choke you at night? Come on, man, I can't do that. Oaths do no harm. Come on, I have a simple little test called a watch pad. You have home sleep studies. So please, if you are going down that route, just double check to make sure that there's no sleep-related breathing disorder, apnea. And please take a look at what level of discernment, like, apnea scores, we can talk about it later. But I would want you to hear that I always tell people this: unless you've had brain trauma or brain surgery, think of sleep medicines as a bridge, not the island. Just like somebody came into the office in excruciating pain, yes, I'll still teach them mindfulness and how to do relaxation, but I still will probably give them something to get them out of crisis mode. And insomnia is the pain in sleep. And if you don't help people through those sticky, gooey moments of their life, it's cruel. The other kind of sleep aids that we would want to think about is antidepressants. Be careful with those because, again, those are short-term medicines. The one that I tend to show as better data is trazodone. Trazodone induces stage 3 deep sleep, so a little bit of funness with trazodone. Well, Lutrin is nice because it doesn't worsen restless legs, and restless legs is common. I'm going to be really quick. I'm going to tell you about restless legs because it gets forgotten. It's not only the legs, arms, torso. For some people, it's rubbing the feet, others fanning out the toes, others stretch. Some people just need to move, reposition. Night to night, it can vary. 2/3 of the people clench and grind. My grandfather had it, my father has it, I have it. I am convinced, as I tend to look at it, I see it more in Dacey's than any other group that I've met. So please look out for restless legs also.
What about melatonin?
Melatonin, thank you. I almost got away without talking melatonin. It's important. So melatonin is not allowed in Europe because it's a hormone. And we more or less give people hormones here, really left and right. Most melatonin made by the brain is 0.1 to 1 milligram every night. I ask us to find a melatonin on the shelf right now that's 1 milligram. You're going to find 3 to 10 milligrams out there. Most people are getting too much. Now, melatonin is something that can be very helpful, but I want people to be watching it relatively with some great ease. Always find companies that have a good record. There's a lot of them that have serotonin. Serotonin straight in the stomach is not a good idea at all. So you got to do very respectable brands. All these others, slow release, we have no data because the companies have marketing, but they don't have data. And they tell you the slow release is better. It's definitely more expensive. But let me share with you, the best data we have is time zone change for melatonin. 1 milligram of melatonin will help you shift your clock. It doesn't work for me. I do a fair amount of international travel and some speaking, but I wish I could be like my friends who do this. They'll take melatonin for 3 days in their current time zone, 1 hour, 2 hours before their bedtime, and then when they get to the new time zone, they'll take it 1 to 2 hours before the new time zone. Half of my colleagues, they flip their switch and they're in the new time zone instantly. I'm always like, wow. Now, very unpopular, but Ambien and Zolpidem, same thing, is also FDA approved for time zone change. So 1 or 2 nights of that can also be helpful for those of you that have the jet lag or the social jet lag that you have to come up against there. Lastly, melatonin at 3 milligrams is sleepy, 1 milligram is time zone change.
We'll take one question there.
One more, and I'll be around, I promise.
Go ahead, Mia.
Meditation, role of meditation. I mean, there's theory saying that meditation helps to capture 10 minutes of meditation is equivalent to X amount of something. Comments on that? Okay.
So, I apologize, the group here and myself, I heard meditation, and meditation can be restorative.
Yes, that's my question. How many minutes of meditation, any data on improvement in the REM sleep?
You know, until recently, I had no way to answer that, but more recently, I do have some thoughts to that. And again, I know we're going to have some presentations right now. It's one of my dearest and favorite topics. To be in the present moment without judgment, the direct experience of present moment without judgment, the mindfulness journey. I love people using their breath work, because in the middle of the night, when that hamster wheel gets going, it is vitally important to create stillness. And until we can train ourselves, it's really hard to suddenly do in the middle of the night. I'm a personal believer. Every one of the executives, every one of the people I work with, I ask them to train every morning, every night for a few minutes with their breath work. There recently was a small report that talked about an hour of being basically in a supine position, relaxed, When I talked to some of the authors, not the direct authors I should say, but some of the other people on the paper, they said it was like meditation, but they didn't formally teach meditation, but an hour of being supine, relaxed, was equivalent of 15 minutes of sleep. So that's the closest I have to any data to say. My friends who do transcendental meditation tell me it's equivalent of sleep, which I'm being a bit of an academic and maybe a snob with my academia. I want to see the data before I'll say that it's equivalent of that. But there's no question, we know there's so many benefits of it, but we always tell people sleep, sleep. But telling people that they can get some benefit from being relaxed in a supine position, being in the present moment, there's no question that we should at least offer that.
Thank you, Dr. Dedhia. That's great. If you can answer this one question in 15 seconds. 15, 1, 5. Yeah. I have two questions. One is, can we make up the lack of sleep during weekdays over weekends? And number two, early to bed, early to rise versus night owls. Is there any difference?
Yes. So they did a study in the military. Men and women serving our country, they were basically sleep deprived because of their work. They were getting as much sleep as they possibly wanted. They all slept over the next 7 days, 8 hours and 15 minutes. By day 8 hours and 15 minutes. So the question is, if it's one night of poor sleep, you can make it up essentially the next night. If it's 1 week, 1 month, 1 year of poor sleep, you can make it up. But imagine this, they needed 8 hours and 15 minutes average as a baseline, an additional 25 hours on top of that. Who here next week is going to take 25 hours off and sleep some extra? And don't get me wrong, it can be done, but that's the thing, is sleep deprivation. If it's chronic, it takes longer to repair it, but you can repair it. The textbook says you can't, that's wrong. You can repair it. But if it's one night, you can get back fairly quick. And the second question was?
Early to bed, early to rise versus night owls. Which is better?
We have genetics now. There's morningness and there's eveningness. It's chronobiology. And we now know there's genomics, and I'm starting to look at some of the genetics stuff out there. So that's the reason why we know teenagers are phase delayed, but some of us, especially restless legs folks, tend to be night owls. So learn your rhythm. The genes are real. We're coming out. 23andMe started looking at it, but I think it's going to be in all of our practices in the next 3 years. What I really want you to know is I did not book my ticket to leave here until this early evening, so there was going to be more questions. Learn about sleep, learn about yourself as you take care of you.